Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Storied Church podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm so glad you are here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen. If you're new and this is your first time here with us, I really hope you find your time with us meaningful. We would love to meet you and get to know you, and you can find a couple of ways to do that on our website at storiedchurch.org. It's storied, S-T-O-R-I-E-D, church.org, or you can find us on social media, and we would love for you to follow us on Instagram and our Facebook at Storied Church. We hope that our sermons and our ruminations are thoughtful and meaningful reflections that help us take our next steps together on our journey. Enjoy.
Well, thank you all for being here again. And I forgot to mention, everyone got these on their seat. Make sure you take one with you today, and we'll talk about it more at our town hall. But if you can't stay, I invite you to read that. It has some of our financial numbers, some of the things that we accomplished this past year. And so make sure to check it out. Last week, we began our Lenten series, Rhythms of Life, and talking about rhythms that will bring about life, and also about using the Lenten season to abandon practices that are not bringing fullness and vitality. And so I thought today we would draw from the Messages translation of the Genesis passage. Within this passage, God gives human beings a role. In the New Revised Standard Version, the words used are subdue and to have dominion over creation. Those words can be challenging for numerous amount of reasons. And then the Message translates these words with responsibility, that humans are to be responsible and they are to take charge. This idea that we are responsible for our lives and communities that bring about life. And part of how we do this, as we talked about last week, is being intentionally honest about our own lives and self-aware about our lives and the places that do not bring about life. And this is our responsibility. It's our task. It is our it is our work. So this might seem cliche, but many of us live our lives in a way that we kind of let life happen to us. And this idea of having rhythm, or you can replace it with rules in our life, can be challenging for some of us and maybe not challenging for others. One is because many of us don't like to be told what to do. And many of us, maybe we're just natural rule breakers. And so the idea of like creating healthy rhythms is that we're telling life that we're not going to let life happen to us. We're going to actually be and have some type of autonomy in our lives by creating healthy rhythms and abandoning and letting go of things that are not giving and bringing about life. And so the beginning of this journey, as we talked about last week, if you weren't here, is to self-reflect internally, to take an honest look at our own lives. And the reality of taking an honest look at our own lives is that sometimes when you do that, it creates a lot of shame and guilt. And we're not on this journey alone, but we kind of have to work through those feelings. I think sometimes if we choose not to be self-aware, which a majority of us in our being a human being is naturally just judging others, is because if I judge others, then I don't have to look at my own life. Can somebody hook me up with a bottled water or something if you got it? Or a cup of water? Awesome, thanks, Scotty. And also, so to internally be self-aware and to externally be cognizant of how our lives impact other people, I think is really important part of this journey. And this journey is so often, I realize, can be about investigating the bad, but I think it's about a search and exploration for the good that exists. The good that exists within us, not about the bad things, but what is life-giving in my own life, and how do I cultivate, thank you, What is this?
Don't ask any questions that you don't want to answer.
That's some good stuff. Is about this exploration about what is good and what do we celebrate in our lives. Not so much just a search for like what is bad. So today, each of the weeks of Lent, we're going to talk about a particular area of our lives, and I'm going to encourage us at the end to like create a rhythm. You don't have to. You're going to create a bunch of rhythms over the next few weeks. You can only probably live out one, and so some of these you're just going to be imagining, and it might be years before you ever like plant the seed in the soil. But it's the practice is what I want us to engage us on. And today I want to particularly talk about our responsibility when it comes to technology, particularly the use of our cell phones and social media, and how it affects our lives and impacts other lives. If you were at Trackside this last week, we spent the whole time, learned a lot about each other's lives, and I'm going to talk about this in the next 15 minutes. Meaning that I can't cover all our personalities, all our DNA of how it impacts our lives. It impacts us differently in different places of our lives. So just kind of footnote that if you're like after that, like, I disagree with that. Well, it's coming from a singular perspective of a 41-year-old. And so you kind of have to, the idea is that you're going to think about it. It's that I'm not going to let this happen to me. I'm going to reason and discern the place that it has in my life. So, you can go to the next slide. So, in 2024, an average adult spends 3 hours and 15 minutes on their phone. A day. We check our phones an average of 58 times a day. And a majority of people average 1 minute, 15 seconds for every time they pick up their phone. And so whatever we're doing when we pick up our phone is not a lot of depth. And again, I'm not judging you. I relate. I'm a human. I'm in this with you. I'm not I'm not making a judgment of anybody. And if you're thinking in your mind, yeah, I know so-and-so does and spends like, this message is particularly for you today. Many of us, this is us at nighttime. It's not me. No, I'm just kidding. It is me. Yeah. The glowing light in our faces. This is unique to our experience because this wasn't our humanity 20 years ago. All right. As we think about social media, now you can go to the next slide. Many of us, when we go to our phones now, is particularly to check social media: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. There's other things out there too. In 2011, most of us used our phones to take pictures and videos, and now a majority of our phones are used to scroll the endless feed on Facebook. These products are not friendly to human beings. These products, they're geared towards information, and this sounds like conspiracy talk, but it's geared towards your information and making sure you spend as much time on that platform. How many times in that 1 minute, 15 seconds every day do you go to check your notifications, see if anybody's messaged you, if there's any updates, and you do this action on anything? The feed never ends. And I want us to get some insight into this man here, Mark Zuckerberg, at the intentions behind is not, the intention at the heart of this is not connection. I think it's the intention is information. And so this is a conversation he had in 2003 with one of his friends at Harvard. Yeah, so if you ever need info about anyone at Harvard, just ask. I have over 4,000 emails, pictures, addresses, SNS. I don't know what that means. Text. Chat. Yeah, chat messages. What? How did you manage that one? People just submitted it. I don't know why. They trust me. How often we have willingly submitted information to platforms that might not have our best interests. Again, this is not a judgment. This is the reality of our lives. And the purpose of this series is that we don't just willingly give our lives to things. We reason, we think about how these places are impacting our lives rather than these social media or cell phones, like they get the right to our lives and we just kind of accept it. So the question for them is how to get people logged into these platforms as much as possible. And so, of course, people were spending massive amounts on their phones, and it was the perfect land to cultivate. And so, like most of us, we weren't asking the questions that we're probably asking now. And they do this by the dopamine hit that we get in the feed and the notifications. And so many of us are conditioned to look for that dopamine hit, that information, that notification. You can go to the next slide. In a recent Atlantic article, this is what this person said. The values that win out tend to be the ones that rob us of agency and keep us addicted to our feeds. Physiologically, this is bad for our bodies. Technology and social media use are linked to increased loneliness, depression, anxiety, sleep issues, and isolation. It exposes children to bullying in comparison to others. It limits human beings' ability to properly communicate, i.e., the things we say on a social media platform than to someone's face are two totally different. So the way we communicate to each other has changed. Higher rates of suicide. And this is very problematic for developing children and teens whose teen years are prime brain development and self-worth development from 10 to 19 years of age. And all this to be said, as parents, this is not a shame inducer. With the culture, the context, we have to make all sorts of arrangements in how it finds its place in our lives. And so this is in no way like we're all going to hell in a handbasket. Parents, you're leading them there. That's not I just want to make sure that's clear. And then as parents, we should not be judging each other like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. We're all trying to figure this out. But I will tell you the question I get from my kids all the time is, when do I get a cell phone? So it is pervasive in our culture that it isn't, when can I get the big Lego set? It's, when do I get that device in my hand? And so that's challenging. If you dig a little deeper, you'll find that the research on impacts of social media and technology are limited. Any research study you'll read, a lot of times you will find that the social media companies like Meta, Twitter, now known as X, they are very resistant to offering any data up to people researching because of the negative effects of technology and social media. And so you'll read studies, and a lot of these studies have to work outside of a lot of data sets. And I know there's an argument for the positive in technology. I wrote my sermon on a computer. I share it with other people so they can have it on their phones. And then it magically appears on my iPad right here, so I don't have to carry around a bunch of paper. I can make an argument for the positives of social media. And when we were at Trackside, I think we had a lot of positives around it. And it's not to discount the positives, but it's also not to discount the negatives. or to make it be the argument for why I don't need to change anything in my life, or the rhythms that I hold in my life. Because look, there's positives. To simplify it, the more time we spend on our phones and social media, the more damaging it can be to our lives. The reason our kids want cell phones is probably because they see it modeled in adults. We see this picture behind us. Go to any coffee shop, airport. So you see people connected to each other. You see people on their phone, restaurants. And so I imagine kids, especially really young kids, see that and like, well, that's what it means to be an adult. And so I must need one of those devices in my hand. And so we go back to the beginning of Genesis, as we talked about. God's call in our lives is to take responsibility, to take charge of creating rhythms that bring about life and vitality. My phone and social media doesn't get to dictate my mental health. It does not. We have let it, but it shouldn't dictate my mental health. And so we have to, part of our responsibility is creating healthy rhythms in our lives around technology and social media, living them out in our lives, and then abandoning the practices that don't bring about life. We're going to do this every week, by the way, at the end. And so, again, and I'll say it in just a second. So here's where our work comes in. Our responsibility is to take charge. What rhythm would you want to incorporate in your life around social media and cell phones? And so think about, what rhythm do I want to incorporate? What is that imagination of the better you that you want to incorporate? You can go to the next slide. Here's where we get mixed up. We go, you know what? I'm going to put my cell phone in a box all day long. You can't put your cell phone in a box all day long. Some of you might be able to do that. But that's why 1 and 2 is be simple. We create goals sometimes that are too complicated and one that we never could actually accomplish. So be simple when creating rhythms in your life. What is it, something that you can accomplish? And the reason I put it twice is because usually the first version is very complicated. I'm going to put it in a box all day long. I'm not going to touch it. Okay, can't do that. And then the second one we use is usually too complicated too. Thank you for dealing with my coughing. You have to. I mean, what else are you going to do? And be simple. And then something you can actually accomplish. And so today, instead of a reflection with me, you can go to the next slide. We're going to go to Minty. Get out your cell phones. And I want you to, in a short, simple sentence. You don't have to live this out right now if you don't want to. We're going to do this all. I keep saying that because I know some people will be like, I just can't do it. I'm so overwhelmed. But I want you just to imagine, what rhythm would you want to incorporate in your life around social media and cell phones? And maybe it's a rhythm you already incorporate. Name that. And so go to minty.com, put in that code, and then
My rhythm is leaving my phone at home when I go to church, so I can't.
Good job, Bradley. You're better than all of us. Instead of the complicated technology of, I'm going to read them. Let's say all come up. So replace Replace cell phone use at night with doing art or reading a book. So for some of us, that rule would be too challenging. And that's okay. Stop doom scrolling. Doom scrolling? I don't know.
It's like when you scroll for hours and hours.
Okay, yeah. Got it.
Usually, especially around like bad news, like if you're just like scrolling the news, right? Or rabbit holing, yeah.
Get out of bed before looking at cell phone. Turn volume off when I get home. No phone out at meals with family. We don't have our phones out during family time. Using focus work modes to reduce notifications. Bravery. More intentionally bring people into conversations that matter. Finding healthier, more productive ways to occupy my mind and time, such as reading, exercise. Not using my phone while out with friends. Lessen time spent on games. Be more intentional in my usage and know when to put away, focus on real life. Reduce consumption of news, information via my cell phone. Limit my own personal media time when I'm on lunch breaks. Not let it rule my time. Real people come first, no phones during conversation with someone else. Prioritize people over posts. Create a space at home that is not convenient and only check my phone there at a specified time. And read more at night. And I got nothing. That's all right. Well, I hope over these next few weeks, you'll find something that you lock onto. And maybe today you'll lock onto a rhythm you want to incorporate and experiment with. Usually during Lent, people just give up something for the whole time. I'm more of the opinion, give up or take on something and try something out. See what sticks. Because I think sometimes when we put into play rhythms that are easy and simple for us to accomplish, we begin to see that energy and that life and vitality of going, man, like at the end of Genesis where God looks back and says, that was good. And I hope as we come out of the season that we might have the same experience. I invite us to pray. God, we give you thanks for this moment and this day. Help us to cultivate responsibility over our lives, over the technology and social media and all these things that we kind of live around. Give us wisdom, discernment. Help us to challenge cultural ideals that might make us better human beings. Pray this in Christ's name.
Again, we want to thank you for listening today to the Storied Church podcast. We really hope that we get to meet you soon. And again, you can visit us at storiedchurch.org, or you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We hope that you have a wonderful week. Hi everyone, it's Jason again, and before you go today, I just wanted to take one moment of your time. Maybe you are a regular attender at Storied Church, or somebody that has found our podcast and you're just listening and you find it valuable. I just want to ask a huge favor. Our church is located in North Carolina, Alamance County, and we are one of the only open and affirming, reconciling, progressive, whatever word you want to label on that church here in Alamance County. And so we're just a really important voice of hope in this place. Every organization, including ours, takes funding. And the church has changed, and so we're trying to be creative in our funding. But I know it's a different ask, that especially if you don't live here in North Carolina. But if you would support us or consider supporting us with a one-time gift or even a monthly gift, it would mean the world. And thank you so much for even considering. You can give by going to storiedchurch.org/give. I hope you do. We would love your partnership and your friendship. Thanks again.